Okay, this is Outlook again.
Aren't you?
Yeah. Not so much, but
The clerks all have my cell, so if I run out of here, Sarah's coming up in case there's any chaos at the polls. But I told him it had to be an emergency.
Chaos is in New York City.
What's going on there?
Well, the polls closed for all. Not a mess, so.
For weather or
No,
other? I heard, I was reading some
Problems.
stuff, there was like a bomb threat somewhere. Missouri seemed to have problems today. They had to move a couple polling places for weather,
huh.
and they had some issues with some machines, but
But basically, now you can jump to different parts of the agenda. Okay? If you don't like seeing this, and you want like a bigger
is that you
screen,
that
got a son.
smells
hit
like
that X, and then that brings it up to full screen.
what is that?
Coconut.
You don't like this on this side, hit that little arrow, and there you go. You want to bring back those bookmarks, that middle one right here,
Yeah, we're
brings
gonna.
it back, so
So many
now
different
right to the budget reso.
I know, I love coconut.
Think of a beach.
Alright.
They've got a river.
You just had to set up the PDF.
Oh,
That's it. Now every attachment goes in open in
yeah,
this,
it's just gotta be turned on.
but that's
Sure,
the
sure.
way
There's
you
a little button on the side.
Good.
Hey, Larry?
I think Kim is first. Bill, I think Kim is first on the agenda.
You are so anxious.
I don't think I need to read this because it's all department heads here and
Now
newspapers.
they grow up fast.
That's it. Bill, we talked about this. We had an agreement.
Some customer came in and I don't know what he's talking about, but he's loaded at Silver Lake.
The time you got
6:59. 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Megan will do roll call.
Mr. Bonfiglio. Mr. Piaski. Mr. Tim.
Here.
Mr. Cap. Mr. Eckstein.
Here.
Mr. Weddy.
Here.
Mrs. Collada.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Peterman.
Here.
Mr. Lauer. Mr. Kirschner.
Here.
All right, thank you, Megan. Let's stand for silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Weddy, second by Mr. Eckstein. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We need approval of the minutes of the October 16th, 2018 monthly meeting.
Oh, there you go.
Motion by Mr. King,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Peterman. Any questions or comments concerning the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And now is time for our 2019 budget public hearing. Anyone from the public here that wants to speak? Okay, if there's no one here to speak from the public, we will adjourn our public hearing. Public comments. That's nobody here, so. We'll go to unfinished business. We have none. New business, County Administrator's monthly report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. happy Election Day. I hope everybody voted. If not, you've got, Megan, what do we got, about 58 minutes
58
left?
minutes.
58 minutes left, so you may want to duck out if you need to. To go over what, it's been a short while since our last meeting, but I thought I'd just go over a few of the highlights since we last sat down on Tuesday, October 18th. The Traffic Safety Committee met over at the Sheriff's Office regarding Highway 21. You may have seen some articles in our weekly newspaper. The issue there is the Postal Service, at a cost-saving measure, had directed mailboxes to be moved to one side of the highway, which necessitated individuals, some of them elderly, to have to cross busy Highway 21 to get their mail. We had a meeting over that. There was representatives from Senator Johnson and I believe Congressman Grothman's office, as well as personal officials. Since then, we've heard from Senator Baldwin as well. We'll take this up again in January. We'll talk to our congressional representatives, but in the meantime, both myself and the Department of Aging Services will be available to provide information to people who want a hardship exemption to have residential delivery. Obviously, we don't want people out there trying to cross the road and putting their lives at risk. On Monday, October 22nd, a number of county officials, including Supervisor Kapp and Sheriff Nett, were at St. Joseph Catholic Church to participate in a seminar entitled Walk in Our Shoes, Understanding the Latino Experience. This was a simulation so that those of us would understand some of the unique challenges Latino immigrants have here in the United States. I particularly want to commend Sheriff Nett, because a lot of the people there were not real receptive to law enforcement, particularly with their involvement in enforcing immigration law, but he handled it very professionally and displayed professionalism and was an asset to Waushara County in that regard. Thursday, October 25th, a number of senior managers participated in an ICMA webinar entitled Taking Smart Risk and Rebounding for Setbacks. As I have communicated to you in my weekly reports, I want people to be a little bit more risk takers rather than to be play it safe all the time, because sometimes you need to take risks to move forward. In that regard, on Wednesday, November 14th, we'll have another webinar for senior management entitled Gaining Project Support from Your Team, Elected Officials, and the Public. On Thursday, November 1st, I was in Appleton at the Fox Valley Technical College main campus. I was representing Waushara County for the Foundation Donor Appreciation event. As you may recall, about a year ago, all of you showed a great deal of vision in appropriating $25,000, $5,000 a year over 5 years to contribute towards the cost for the new Watoma Center, which is up and running and classes are full. I would tell you that $25,000 investment, even though we've only invested $5,000 so far, it has paid off manyfold. As I said, the classes are full. If you want to look at it from an economic development standpoint, there are a number of jobs at Fox Valley at that branch campus. People working there who were not working there before, would not have been working had it not been for that facility. And in return, we also have a number of people in our community who are gaining education and skills to increase their income, and that's good for us, it's good for their families, it's good for our merchants. It's also good on the long term. It makes our workforce more attractive to prospective employers. Moving on, yesterday, administration officials met with our employee health coach and officials from Theta Care. Mrs. Collada was in the building, so I asked her to sit in as well. We went over our employee health assessments that were conducted for all of our employees a few months ago. We have a lot of work to do. If you look at me, I'm not exactly the picture of health. You may not believe this, but I am somewhat overweight, and we need to address that, as well as high blood pressure and some of those things as well. So we're going to, in conjunction with our health department, we're going to see what we can do to improve employee health. That's not just a dollar issue. Having healthier employees means lower health care costs, but it's also a morale issue. We want happy and healthy employees, so we're going to be proactive in that, and not just simply assume that there's nothing we can do. This Thursday and Friday, I will be commuting to Stevens Point instead of Watoma to participate in the Wisconsin Regional Tourism Conference. I was informed of this through my contacts with the Department of Tourism for the state of Wisconsin. Again, not to beat the drum of economic development. As I've said before, Waushara County's economy has three legs to it: agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. Tourism is the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest thing to improve. So I'm going to go up there on Thursday and Friday. I'm not too proud to admit that I have no qualms about stealing other people's ideas. I'll see what other communities are doing to increase tourism and see if we can do that here as well. This Sunday at 11 o'clock in the morning will be the centennial of the armistice that ended the First World War. As you may know, or as you certainly know, out here on our lawn, we have a statue of a doughboy charging through the barbed wire into no man's land. I can tell you, as a guy who's been all over the country and who likes to visit courthouses, it's kind of a little quirk I have. Having a monument to the First World War is exceedingly rare. You see lots of Civil War monuments on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line, but you don't see a lot of World War I monuments. I'm not sure what the situation was, but obviously in the 1920s, the residents of this community decided it was important enough to memorialize, to honor veterans of that war. And I think it's important for us to recognize that important anniversary, 100 years since the end of that war. Bill Rosenell, who's here, he and I have put this together on the fly in the last week, but we'll be out there at 11 a.m. The weather's looking like it's going to improve. We will have a color guard from the local American Legion post. I am making arrangements with our high school to have one of the kids, either in the literature club or the public speaking club, to come and recite the famous World War I poem in Flanders Fields. The museum will also be open at that time, and they will be exhibiting whatever World War I artifacts or period artifacts they have as well. So I would encourage you to attend, and if you know of anybody else, also encourage them to attend. It's important that we remember the past and the sacrifice that people have made. Let's see, Tuesday, November 13th to Friday, November 16th, we are going to have auditors in the building to take a look at our operations. That's best practices. We're handling other people's money, so it's important that every once in a while we have people from the outside take a look to make sure we're doing so properly, and we do that on a regular basis. On Monday, December 3rd, I will be in Madison at a meeting of the Wisconsin Counties Utility Tax Association regarding, you probably don't know much about that organization, but we're trying to increase membership amongst Wisconsin counties, and our main goal this year in this upcoming legislative session is utilities are taxed, but the lion's share of that money goes to state coffers. The reason utilities are taxed is because of the infrastructure they rely upon to not only provide service electricity, but also the services they rely upon if there's, say, an ice storm and the lines are down. Those services, that infrastructure, is provided by local governments, so we are taking the position that it's not fair for the state to take the lion's share of that money, that those utilities are being taxed. We're not asking for more tax money, we're just asking for a greater share of it. The utilities are being taxed to pay for that infrastructure and services. It should go to the people who are providing it, and that's the local governments. On Monday, December 10th, so far, myself and Supervisor Kirshner will be in Hancock for the meeting, and that's a combined meeting, Mark. That's for why don't you help me out? Who all is meeting?
Village and Town. Both.
Village and Town, they will be meeting. And I'm also looking at Tuesday, December 4th for the meeting for Bloomfield Township. As you know from my communications to you, my latest outreach project is I'd like to attend all 18 township meetings, and we're not going to rush this. This will be over the next year or two, but I will keep you apprised of that, and so you can attend as well if you wish to. Friday, December 7th, some good news. We will have the employee holiday luncheon downstairs in the demonstration room. I know a number of you were there last year. I encourage you to come there, not only for the luncheon, but also it's very important to the employees to see you there, because it shows them that as their leaders, as the elected leadership of this county, that you care about their well-being. We adhere to the spirit of the season, so we will be collecting funds for charity, food for the food pantry, for the county food pantry, and Toys for Tots. You may notice as you leave the building, if you walk by the administration suite, we have a collection box outside of my office. In fact, the reason why we moved up the luncheon a week is because the Marines collect those toys. They need them, I think, by the 8th or 9th in order to distribute them to kids for this Christmas. So that's why we're doing it a little earlier than we did last year. You may remember a few days ago I sent you a flyer from UW Oshkosh. They are the graduate school for public policy is offering us some assistance for any research we may want them to undertake on public policy issues, either policy that we need to formulate or policy that we need to revise. I've also distributed that to the department directors. I've already received one suggestion, so think about that over the next week or so, things that you think need to be fixed around here. And as I said in that message, these are young, intelligent, energetic people, but most of all, we're not paying for their labor, so that's always a good deal for us. Finally, I wanted to make note of this. Today I got the copy of the Wisconsin Counties magazine, and you all probably have that in your mailbox downstairs, so get that on your way out of the building. But it was kind of a recap of the annual meeting in La Crosse that some of us went to back in September, and they had a listing of the resolutions that were presented to representatives of the 72 Wisconsin counties. And basically, this group of people were doing more or less what you do, except they were representing all of Wisconsin counties. These were resolutions, actions, suggestions mainly for legislative proposals. And there were 59 submitted by counties throughout the state. Three of those were solely submitted by Waushara County. We didn't share that. We didn't co-sponsor with anybody. We submitted three of them, and all three of them were approved by our sister counties. So the reason why I bring that up is, yes, it is bragging to a certain extent, but it's also to illustrate that what we are doing here is even small, meek Waushara County is taking the position that we are not going to be passive bystanders. We are going to be active, and we're going to control our destiny, or at least we're going to influence it. And the Wisconsin Counties Association has taken up our three resolutions, and they will be pushing them not only on our behalf, but on behalf of all Wisconsin counties. So that's a credit to you because you approved these resolutions, and it's a credit to our staff who drafted them and who submitted them to you. So that's the cultural change I keep harping about all the time. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Civic. Next, we'll have Child Support Office Annual Report, Director Kim Stebbins.
All right. Good evening. I just want to talk to you tonight about the child support program and go over a few statistics. If I can figure out how to use this.
Did you turn it on the side? There's a little.
Thank you. There we go. So there's federal and state partnership. So the Office of Child Support Enforcement administers the federal funding for the child support program. For every dollar spent, 66 cents comes from funding from federal, and the state and counties provide 34 cents. Wisconsin submits a state plan to the OCSE for how the program will be administered by the local child support agencies. The OCSE develops administrative rules, performance standards, and they audit Wisconsin's compliance with those rules and standards. National impact of child support programs. Just a few statistics up here. 95% of the child support goes directly back to families. 5% is reimbursed back to the public assistance programs. We do collect most of the child support funding from, or child support monies from income withholding. In Wisconsin, if somebody is employed, we are going to garnish their wages. Only if they're self-employed or not working will they pay on their own. role of the circuit court. The circuit court conducts our child support hearings. They are the sole authority for changing orders. We, as an agency, are not do not get involved in custody and placement issues, visitation, although it is brought up in court. And so when we're in court, the court does address custody, placement, visitation, and those issues. We do bring forth civil contempt. We will refer cases for criminal non-support when appropriate to the district attorney, and the district attorney will decide whether to prosecute those cases. Child support is local. We, as you can see up here, the average caseload out across Wisconsin, about 740 cases per worker. We're a small county here, so the average, we have 350 cases average approximately per child support specialist here to handle our cases. And we work with the local courts, employers, and other agencies to establish paternity, child support orders, etc. So our local staff here, we do a number of things customer service related. We draft the court orders after they're in court. We schedule appointments, negotiate lien payoffs, calculate the child support. We also refer non-custodial parents or paying parents to job programs when necessary if they're not employed. It's a little bit difficult in a rural area like this, but there are a few agencies that we can refer them to. Administrative enforcements, and not all of our enforcement is through the courts. We do have automatic liens that can go on property when they reach a certain threshold. If they're behind, they will be reported to the credit bureaus. We have the ability to suspend licenses after due process. That would include driver's licenses, hunting and fishing licenses, and even professional licenses. So sometimes we negotiate lien payoffs for those things. If they do not comply and they want to become back in compliance, we can enter into what's called an alternative payment plan. They can get their license back that way. They could be submitted for passport renewal denial if they reach a certain threshold. So they cannot, they want to get their passport to go to Mexico and they're not paying their child support. They're not going to be renewed or be able to get a passport until they pay off a certain amount. And I believe that threshold, they at least pay, I think it is $2,500 to get their passport. How are we performing in Waushara County? So I have up here our county performance compared to the statewide rate. We are above average from the statewide rate. We have a threshold of 80%, so you'll see here paternity establishment. That is over 100% only because we start and finish paternity cases and are based on our federal fiscal year, how that runs. So it's, I believe it's divided by the number of paternities established in the current year, divided by the non-marital births in the prior year. So that's how it can be over 100% there. And our current collection rate, 79.87%. We're almost at 80% of the current orders, what is owed compared to what was paid. We collected $2.5 million last year in child support. That's just current child support. Statewide, there are both county and tribal child support agencies. We're overseen by the Bureau of Child Support. They maintain the KID system, which is our system that we run for our child support. And the trust fund we have, that they oversee the collections from the trust fund. They do submit the reports to OCSE, and then they allocate our federal incentive funds to the county. Wisconsin's impact, I have a few statistics up here for you. For every dollar spent, $6.76 is collected in Wisconsin. We're very cost effective here, and $658 million collected annually and paid to families. So quite a bit of money back to families for child support. So 366,000 cases received for child support services. This is based off of the federal fiscal year 2016. 374,000 children depend on child support. Wisconsin is a national leader. Here's some more statistics for you. Wisconsin does exceed the national rate in our performance standards. We are ranked second in the nation for collection of current child support. We are fifth among states and territories for cost effectiveness, as I talked about earlier. All of our collections go through a trust fund that's located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Once they receive the payments in, they're distributed within 24 hours out. Looks like most of the payments that come in are from electronic funds transfer, a lot of times from employers. 46% is by mail. Our participants can either mail in payments to the trust fund on their own if they're not employed, or if they want to make extra payments, they're able to do that through the mail. KIDS is our data system that we operate, it tracks our court orders. It will automatically send out letters if someone's delinquent. So on the agency level, we can do that manually, but a lot of that is just all automated now, which is nice. It'll send us indicators when we need to pursue more further action if someone continues to not pay. Then we'll look for other administrative enforcement measures, or even at the court level. Our KID system can help us locate absent parents. We get matches for addresses, employers, income, other assets. If someone has money in a bank account, we get indicators that, if they have thousands of dollars, and even in an IRA or something, we can get some indicators through that and can actually freeze their bank accounts for those extreme cases where we need to do that. We also get matches through national new hire, state new hire. That's a lot of times our participants, they don't always call in with who they're employed by, and most of the time we find out who they're employed by before they even call us from those matches, which is really nice. So we can get those income withholdings into place and get the money coming into the families. All of our cases are submitted for tax intercept if they're delinquent. So it's all automated through an interface behind the scenes. So come tax season, if they're eligible for a refund and they owe money, we're at the top of the list to get those refunds. So our child support program is not possible without the hard work and dedication of our local program staff here, and we have a really good staff in our county. As you can see, it from our numbers here, that we meet or exceed in most of the areas our performance standards, and I'm really happy with our agency, what we have here today. So I believe that's it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but thank you very much.
Kim, so the state collection rate's at roughly about 75% on child support cases, correct?
Yeah, we're just under, it looks like just under the 80%.
Just under 80%.
Yeah.
So with that 20%, or statewide with the 25%, what's the biggest hurdle in sort of getting that
Yeah,
list.
it's
They're
really-
getting closer to a 100%.
You know, and that's really difficult to say what the hurdle is. I mean, it's just making sure, I think the biggest thing is making sure court orders are appropriate when they need to be reviewed. I don't ever want to have anybody have an order that's not appropriate for, like, you know, if they're not earning what they were anymore, and if they get laid off, if an employer closes down, we want to have their order reviewed. Maybe that could be a factor. I don't know how to answer.
You're not having trouble locating the actual people, though. It's just
A big part of it is locating. Another part is we have a lot of incarcerated parents, so the order still charges. They don't stop while they're incarcerated. We could reduce them. Actually, as a local court rule here, our judge reduces it to a low-income payer scale, but he will not just suspend an order. It's possible to do that. Some counties, like Milwaukee County, will do that, but here our local courts would like to at least have some kind of order running back to families when someone does get out of incarceration.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Stebbins? Thank you. All right, does anyone need a break before the next report? If not, our Veteran Service Officer annual report by our one and only County Veteran Service Officer, Bill Rosenau.
Ba-dum-bum. All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for letting me entertain you tonight. I am going to keep things really short with the budget and the elections. I'm sure you won't fault me. I think I was a Marine.
Hey.
There we go. In front of you, you're going to find the annual report for 2017. I've included in that the annual charity report and an economic impact statement with trends from 2002 to 2017. I'm not going to read the report to you. A couple of big highlights. We did see about a 23% increase in office visits in 2017. We're still able to come in under budget by over $10,000. Primarily because of less use of the transportation system and larger than expected reimbursements from the state and also donations for the Veterans Commission Fund. A couple of things I really wanted to talk about tonight. Population versus economic impact and the overall economic impact. I'm not a statistician or an economist, so I handed this off to somebody a lot brighter than me, Professor Steve Deller with UW Extension, and he went over the top with it. Big thing right here, you'll notice, is a declining veterans population. Even with a declining veterans population, I think this is pretty telling. Waushara County's veterans population, although declining, is just now starting to hit the same percentage as the rest of the state was in 2002. We've got an overly abundant resource in veterans. With that, you would think that we would see a similar decline in economic impact. Unfortunately, well, I can't say unfortunately, fortunately, quite the opposite is true. And the next couple of slides will be telling. I do want to point out that the veterans population numbers and my office population numbers differ actually quite a bit, and there's statistical error on both sides. The VA's numbers are based off of an algorithm off the 2010 census, and my numbers are just the folks who actually report to me that they're dead. The big takeaway on this slide, other than the declining veterans population, is that we are statistically larger than both the national and state average. I'm sorry, that was this slide here. Veterans comprise approximately 9% of the county population. Looking at the growth index, or in this case the decline index, you can see that the outcome of being one of the older populations in Wisconsin is reflected in the declining population. Over the last 5 years in particular, we're seeing more of a rapid decline in the veterans population. Contrary to this, my office is actually seeing an increase in the veterans moving into Waushara County. We're getting a lot of folks moving up from Chicago, Milwaukee into their summer homes. And I'm actually seeing a plateauing effect. Keeping the declining veterans population in mind, I want to point out the actual increase in federal compensation and pension benefits coming into the county. We're closely paralleling both the state and national trend lines, not quite up to the national average in these two benefits, but keeping ahead of the state average per veteran. We are the red line there. Looking at the total VA expenditures for veterans, we're again parallel, not quite equal to the state and national trends. If you look at the numbers that actually feed these trends, two things really jump out. Those are the declining utilization of VA medical care and the fact that we here in Waushara County don't enjoy the presence of any VA facilities, which would tend to inflate both the state and national averages. Part of the numbers that feed this are actually VA construction costs. Since we don't have any and both the state and the national averages do, I'm surprised to see us that closely paralleling the national and state trends. All right, what does this all mean? Bottom line, the federal money coming in because of the small sector of the population has a real impact. Looking at these numbers, they make a lot of sense to a statistician or an economist, but I had to ask a couple of people what they meant. What I gleaned from those conversations, the total effect of the federal dollars coming into Waushara County is the equivalent of a business with about 113 jobs. And the impact of those federal dollars when adjusted, that's how many times they circulate through the local economy, was nearly $13 million in 2017. If you wanted to compare that to a business, my office has the same fiscal impact as pretty much the 8th largest employer in Waushara County. Some key takeaways. I feel very strongly that with a targeted approach, we can grow those numbers. Currently, the Wisconsin Department of Veterans Affairs is looking at how much of an economic impact can be realized. They're working on initiatives to grow the veterans population in Wisconsin. Although we're seeing a declining veterans population, we can directly influence the amount of federal money by concentrating on increasing participation in VA health care, focusing more diligently on claims for pension for elderly wartime vets, and through concentration on federal VA education benefits, which is going to be greatly impacted by the Fox Valley Tech opening up here in town. To grow those numbers, we may have to grow the office. I know I've talked about this in the past, and the change in the position with the new assistant CVSO is a great step in that direction. If we see the increase in productivity that I truly expect with Brian, we may be coming to you in the next couple of years asking to add or share some administrative support so we can actually concentrate on growing the bottom line. Feel free with the annual report I provided, any of these statistics, to approach me offline, and I'm more than happy to sit down and chat with you. I may have to do some more data mining to try to figure out what's moving these populations, but always subject to your questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Bill? You want to let everyone know that if they aren't comfortable donating to the many different organizations they get in the mail, that you will be more than happy to take their donation?
More than happy. More than happy.
100% of it goes to the veterans.
Yes, yeah. The Waushara County Veterans Commission Fund is a great place to donate because every penny that comes in is going to help a needy veteran in the area. One thing I do want to point out real quick on this charity report, of the literally hundreds of veterans charities that are out there, only 35 actually fully reported to the Better Business Bureau. Those 35 are in that report. And some of the numbers are really, really surprising. If you are looking at donating, and this is that time of year, I'd really encourage you to hop on the Better Business Bureau Charity Research website and take a look, see where your money's going.
I would encourage you to right on over to Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. Next, consideration of possible action, the following resolutions. Resolution approving Washera County 2019 budget appropriation. Do we
I'd
have a
move to
motion?
approve the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Weddy, second by Mr. Kirschner. Any questions or comments concerning the budget? Hearing none, we will have a roll call vote.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Mr. Bonfiglio. Mr. Piaski. Mr. Tim.
No.
Mr. Kapp.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein. Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Colada.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
Next, we have resolution number 47-11-18, resolution authorizing one additional employee for the Highway Department. A motion by Mr. Kirschner, second by Mr. Eckstein. Do you have any questions or comments? Hearing none, this will also be a roll call vote.
Mr. Bonfiglio. Mr. Piaski. Mr. Tim.
Yes.
Mr. Kapp.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein. Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Colada.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Peterman.
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
All right, next we have resolution number 48-11-18, requesting increased funding for Wisconsin's Child Protective Services System.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Weddy, second by Mr. Kapp. Any questions or comments? All right, this will most likely also, no roll call vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, Bruce. Next, we have resolution number 49-11-18, acknowledgement of Roger Wagner's voluntary commitment and service to Washera County. Motion by
moved.
Mr. Eckstein, second by Mr. Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next, we have an appointment to the Board of Adjustment of Mr. Robert Wado from Richford. The term will be from November 2018 through April 2020. Motion by Mr. Kirschner, second by Mr. King. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Do you have any suggestions for future agenda items?
Can I just point out, I did have a typo on the agenda I sent to you. It is at 7 o'clock like normal. The printed one I corrected it on, but the one on your tablet, it did say 8 o'clock. It is the normal 7 o'clock.
Very good. A motion to adjourn by Supervisor Eckstein, second by Mr. Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
That's like a record.
Yeah, now you
You
can
guys
vote.
got me downstairs by 8 o'clock. This is great. I didn't even think that was possible.
We will put it on the agenda.
I've gone through this thing, I gotta say, 20 times. Because I keep looking, I think there must